And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. The most important aspect of a log cabin building is the site upon which the log cabin was built. Site selection was aimed at providing the cabin inhabitants with both sunlight and drainage to make them better able to cope with the rigors of frontier life. When the first pioneers built cabins, they were able to cherry pick the best logs for the cabin. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 1990.
Probably, in my mind, some of the best wood in the world comes out of this area for log homes. They ship from Prince George, they ship all over the province into Alberta, down to the States, the raw log. Every early summer, they bring a group of people up here, and they just basically tour our operation. We give them an introduction to the log home, how it's built, you know, just a preview of what goes on here. Of course, what we're looking for is the size with minimum amount of taper. So from the butt to the top, we want the log to be as straight. They're really keen on log homes, and that is a big push from their government and from their medical community over there, is that they want to get back to nature. They want to get back to out of the concrete cities, as they call them over there. It's very unhealthy, and again, they have a big increase in the recreational time due to unemployment and automation. They have now had a traditional work week, which has been 6 to 7 days, now been cut back to 5, which gives them an increase of 100% time in their recreation there. So a lot of their time is being spent, you know, out at the golf clubs and tennis courts and ski hills, which is where our big market is. So this allows us to peel all year long. We can, 25 below, 30 below, the peeler still works as good as it does in weather like this.
この機械を使えばマイナス23度でも年間を通して剥けるということで。
Gives us a lot more consistency also. That's very critical.
で手でやるよりも綺麗に仕上がるということですね。
But let's we'll just move on down.
Having the market and taking advantage of it are two different things. Helping to close the gap between the two is CAM's marketing agent.
We act as a liaison and represent his product. It's not our name on the product, it's Nordic Log Homes, which we try to represent not only in Japan, but also in Korea and Taiwan and more recently in England.
Doug Hawkinson has been CAM's overseas liaison for the past few years. It's no coincidence that he's in Prince George at the same time as the Japanese. He knows that it takes time and a lot of nurturing to cement any business relationship, but especially when you're dealing with the Japanese. It's also no coincidence that CAM's Japanese yard hand has a high profile during the tour. Yuichi is on a work visa, and on this day he proves to the Japanese that Cameron has as much faith in them as Cameron hopes the Japanese have in him.
The personal contact, again, is very important, and we really work hard to ensure that the customer and the manufacturer get together on an ongoing basis so they know one another on a first-name basis.
In this case, the manufacturer is Nordic Log Homes, and the customer is a company called Macford. It's a major distributor of log homes in Japan.
This is the plan for this house. This is going up to the Yukon.
この図面が今建ててるこれの家のものなんですけども、これは後でユーコン州に送られます。BC 州の上にある州ですけれども。
This is probably very typical of our Canadian or British Columbian homes. This one we do probably several a year.
このデザインはカナダ。
私どもはですね、日本で一応全国でですね。
He has the Japanese nationwide log home chains. He's selling log homes. The people he took today is his clients throughout Japan, which he sells the log homes to.
そのうちのですね、代理店さん、いわゆる
Well, bottom line is he is looking for the quality of the spruce that Cameron's looking for, I guess, offering, I should say. And early years he had the difficulty with Cameron about engineering specifications. Like Japanese people want the precise building that in Canada, as his point of view, it's kind of rough. So he had some kind of difficulty in the early years
Is that gap closing? Are they getting?
Yeah, it is. And he's saying Cameron is getting better now, so he's much happier now after 4 years.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. Whether you dream of a permanent escape into the woods or just want a cozy, affordable place to spend long weekends, a log cabin is an attractive and affordable option. At its most basic, a rustic 200 square foot log cabin costs as little as $25,000. On the other hand, the sky is the limit with the luxury mountain cabins, which can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Let us return to the archives as Cameron Short shares some of the challenges of running a business.
What they picture as a log home and what we picture as a log home there is quite a bit of difference. And you know, the language barrier, the distance between us has posed some problems, but nothing major. And it's just basically understanding what they want and how they perceive things differently than we do.
Just centered on this pencil line?
I've had trouble with it, but I think at this point now I've learned a lot. It's been really enjoyable when I look back on it. Totally different culture. Their way of doing business as compared to the North American way there's quite a difference between the two, and I really appreciate a lot of their theories, I guess, and how business should be conducted.
Now Canadian company understands Japan is a big market for them, so they are really starting to customize their log homes to meet the Japanese market.
So far, Cam has done a pretty good job of meeting the demands of the Japanese market, and it might get a little easier now that he's secured his own supply of timber.
I did mention is, of course, we now have our own timber license, which we're very proud of.
Your company or?
Yes, Nordic.
It's taken 6 years, 2 premiers, and 4 different forest ministers, but now Nordic finally has the supply for its own demand, and it's made a big difference.
And this year alone, we'll probably add another 30 to 40% to our sales due to the fact that we finally signed our timber agreement with the local Forest Service. So I'm very pleased about it. It's physically going to free up probably 30 to 35% of my time personally, which was spent in locating and securing building logs.
While most of his market is out of the country, Cam does build some locally, like this cabin to the northwest of Prince George. This, too, was part of the tour, as the Japanese took a look at the finished product.
Anything else you put in or in coating?
After. Sure. Yeah, it should all actually be caulked and trimmed.
Included among the homes he's shipped overseas is a resort home for Coca-Cola Tokyo. And more recently, he completed a split-level home for the head of Japan Airlines in Alaska. There are a number of Canadian companies that build log homes, but few have established the reputation and credibility of Nordic log homes. With that experience comes a hefty price tag, but according to Cam, the quality justifies the price.
They're very intelligent when it comes to business. They're very shrewd, and you have to be on your pricing. You have to be consistent on your quality. You have to deliver your projects on time, your performance, you know, the ability to build a building and get it over to Japan when they indicate it is very critical. And the bottom line, basically, just as it is here, it boils down to price. They don't mind paying a little more to get a little better quality and, you know, to get a little more accurate delivery time, but there's only so much of a value that they will place on that. So it's a big job. I mean, we don't sit back. There's a lot of work that goes into it. We're internationally quite famous. Prince George directly and Nordic Log Homes indirectly, as far as the log home industry is concerned. But there was, in the last year to a year and a half, between 25 and 30 new log home companies started up in the province of BC.
And with the increased competition, Cameron Short knows that he will have to find other markets besides Japan. That's why he's looking at the U.S. and Europe. It's a pretty successful business the 30-year-old has developed. It's certainly more than he ever expected when he dropped out of high school to work with a chainsaw.
I was born and raised in Prince George. I'm very proud of that fact. Prince George has treated me and my family really well. And exactly, I think our customers favor the fact that, you know, we are here, our timber comes here, we do our own logging, and that it is the central interior of British Columbia, the spruce capital of the world. I think it does play.
And as for the visit with the Japanese, it was more than worthwhile. After 2 days of tours and at least one $1,200 supper bill, the end result was the sale of 5 new homes.
Oh, he said he's gonna order two log homes in Nigeria. Good news for you, I guess.
Yeah. I would say our sales in this one trip probably were in the neighborhood of $75,000 to $80,000, perhaps slightly higher. It's been quite a battle, but it seems.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. Before you're ready to buy your own boat, you could rent or charter boats of every size and type for the afternoon, the weekend, or even the entire summer. This way you can see which type of vessel and boating experience best suits your lifestyle before you buy. Let us return to the archives to discover some of the advantages of chartering a sport fishing boat.
Ray Hepting is a charter boat operator. He takes people out on sport fishing expeditions. But long before Ray earned a living through fishing, he was doing it for fun.
Actually, I started fishing, and I found that I liked fishing so much that I like to do it all the time. And it costs a lot of money to go fishing. And then I started taking guys along with me to share the expenses, and then I soon found that fuel wasn't the big expense, and kept on starting to charge a little bit and more until finally it got so that I had to charge a lot to keep up with the maintenance. And toward the last year of operation with our other boat, we took in a fair chunk of dollars and ended up spending almost all of it on maintenance and business costs. So then what we did is I figured out what it would cost to run a boat like this and what I could get for it, and we found that it was expedient to get a bigger boat and be able to make a living off of it. And then I was working at the mill, and we decided that I had to leave because we couldn't get enough of the right skippers for the boat.
With the growing popularity of sport fishing, the number of charter boat operators in the Kitimat area is also growing. It sounds pretty good, the life of a charter operator. Getting paid to do what others are paying to do, namely, enjoying yourself catching fish. But it's not always what it may seem. There's long hours during the season looking after the clients. Then in the off-season, there's long hours looking after the boat. As well, there's no guarantees on the amount of work, no guarantees of a steady paycheck. You also have to deal with demanding and often finicky guests. It can be hard work, but it can also be a lot of fun.
Well, it's a little bit of both. It is a lot of hard work. I guarantee you, like a lot of days I'm up at before 5 and to bed after midnight. But it's you get a lot of satisfaction from it, you know, and people are having a good time, and especially when they leave and everybody's happy. Well, and when the fish are biting, that's the best time. And then the pressure's off. There's a lot of pressure in this job. Everybody thinks it's just easy street, but it's if you happen to have a tough day and the fish aren't biting, that's real stress, you know.
Got to keep the clients happy.
Oh yeah, that's the first thing, and it is sort of a type of thing where everybody would like to do, you know. And I thought of it a long time ago too, and now I'm doing it.
There are a few basic necessities to be a sport charter operator. You've got to have the boat, and you've got to have the fishing equipment. But more importantly, you've got to have fish, and they're there in the gray, cold Pacific waters, And even more importantly, you've got to have the local knowledge to be able to go out and catch those fish every day on a steady basis. The clients demand it. That knowledge can only come with experience.
What happens if you come out here and people pay the big dollar and you go for a few days and you don't get any fish? I mean, that must be tough.
That doesn't happen. Well, I shouldn't say it doesn't happen, but it's so rare that, you know, that if you go out for a few days, I'm going to find fish someplace. But there's other things to a trip besides fish. Like there's the hot springs, the scenery, and things that you see like killer whales and sea lions and eagles, and we always catch crab, and you know it's not just the fish. There's a whole bunch of things that go together to make it a good experience. You know.
Heck, relaxing in the sun in a place like this has got some merit to it.
Oh man, this is beautiful BC, hey? Oh, it's a hard place not to be here.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Just as fish have a spot in the food chain in the wild, they also have a hierarchy in the nutrition world when it comes to human health, and salmon typically reigns king. In this final segment of Open Connection, we return to the archives as Ray prepares some freshly caught salmon.
This fish is going to turn into lunch. We're going to have a gourmet meal here today. That's if I can get through the bone here. There. Right now, we're having trouble conning somebody into eating boiled fish, but we're gonna.
We got somebody here who doesn't like fish, eh? But you think you're gonna convince him that the fish is pretty good?
This is guaranteed winner. Never go back to your wife's cooking after you eat this. You big ear? Ooh. There you are.
True to his word, Ray does cook up a heck of a meal. Nothing like the fresh salt air and a successful day's fishing to whet one's appetite. By the way, Ray did make a convert out of that one fellow who apparently didn't like fish. Salmon is what most fishermen on a charter are after, but you never know what you're going to get on the end of the line. This time it's one of the many varieties of rock cod. These fish you have to be particularly careful with.
On the last trip, we had a fella that was removing the hook, and when he did it, he got 3 of these spines in his wrist, and he was in real pain for over half an hour.
What, is there poison in there or something?
Yeah, they have poison in them, but this fella had a shot of 3 of them, and he was in real pain for...
Rockfish are edible, but they can also be used to entice eagles, luring the big raptors close to the boat to pick up an easy meal, which also makes for a good photo opportunity. While salmon may be the key target of most charter fishermen, there's a denizen of the deep that is attracting more and more attention by sport anglers, the Pacific halibut, which averages about 40 or 50 pounds in these waters, but which can grow to truly monstrous proportions.
What size halibut will you get in the waters around here?
Pardon? Just a minute, I had a hold of something here. Oh, sorry, okay. What was that?
What size halibut will you get in waters around here?
Any size. It's not, oh yeah, I should warn you about another thing about when you're using these Norwegian jigs, is that they often double over. And I think that's what we've got here, I'm not sure. But here you could catch a halibut up to 350 feet, or 350 pounds, I should say, you know. The proper way to jig, to lift your rod up and let it fall so the line stays slack. And then you just sort of bounce around a little bit, not violently, and then every once in a while just lift her up, let it down. If you feel anything strange at all, or if your line stops too soon, then you got to give it a swat. But usually the laziest fisherman gets the halibut, because halibut is a lazy type of fish.
Well, the technique seems effective. It doesn't take long, and Ray's hooked a halibut. The experience is nothing new to him, so he hands off the fishing rod to a first-time halibut fisherman. While the fight's on, Ray readies the harpoon. For bigger-sized halibut, it's used to make sure they don't get away.
Because I don't really want to slash them again. Oh boy, I got him in there. I didn't want to get him right there. I wanted to get him in the gills, but that'll do. As you can see, he's slowed right down. What we're going to do now is we're going to let him bleed, and when we take a fillet out of him, he'll be nice and clean.
In a few moments, Ray is cleaning the fish while telling what's perhaps a fish tale about the halibut.
Like a halibut will bite a boot. This one halibut that we had last year had a salmon in it, an octopus about this long, and a rock about as big as your fist. So, you know,
they're an eating machine.
They're an eating machine. And I don't know what the idea of the rock is. Some people say that when they have rocks in their stomach, they're getting ready for a storm. Now, whoever says what's right, I don't know.
Besides the excitement halibut provide at the end of a fishing rod, the big flatfish are considered by many to be the finest eating of all North Pacific fish. In the local lingo, a smaller halibut, say under 30 pounds, is called a chicken, and we hook one of those too.
This is a real chicken. This is going to be groceries plus.
Where did you put your...
Oh, I think we just need the gaff for this one, Art. Here you are. Here, we just lift them out of the water, though. Oh. This is probably about a 7 or 8 pounder. And this guy is going to be the better than chicken it is. See, this is just like eating spring fryers. Okay. Whoops. Oh, boy. I guess we just lost our spring fryer.
Ray Hepting does pretty good out on the waters he knows so well. He's always going to find fish of some sort. It comes from being in the charter business for a dozen years, and from sport fishing for a good many more years than that.
If you want to go with a charter boat operator, find one that fishes for himself, not just during the money time. That's the way to do it.
The guy who fishes in his off time.
The guy that fishes in his off time is the right guy, yeah.
Still, with more and more people out to catch the fish, it's not as easy as it once was.
It's getting harder to find fish. Like the fish hatchery that we have now is done quite a bit for us. Like out in the front there, when in that month of last 2 weeks of June and the first 2 weeks of July, it's really helped us because we get a lot of big fish. And I imagine it's helped us outside too, because in different places. But what we're doing now is a lot of people are getting away from salmon fishing so much, and they're starting to want halibut and lingcod and red snapper and things like this. And like where I fish, where the land meets the sea more or less, is where they're most abundant. You know, and that's we do really well.
This past fishing season has been a good one for Ray Hepting. He managed to keep his boat busy most of the time and hopes to buy a second boat soon. Still, the sport charter business has its difficulties. This past season, there wasn't a marina at MK Bay, and that created all sorts of problems.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind to his heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.